4, 3, 2, 1.
Studio Classroom is Please stand by. Studio Classroom is on the air.
Welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. We are very glad you're joining us today for another great lesson. My name is Anne-Marie.
And I'm Gabe, and I like bubbles. Do you like bubbles?
You mean blowing bubbles?
Well, yeah, why not?
Bubbles can be fun. You know who really likes bubbles? Kids.
Well, yes, that's true. Hey, what else comes to your mind when you think of bubbles?
I think of bubble baths.
Okay.
My daughter really likes to take bubble baths.
Oh man, kids love bubble baths. And putting those bubbles all over their face,
Yes.
right? What about bubble gum? Did you ever eat bubble gum, or do you ever chew bubble gum?
I do chew bubble gum sometimes. I'm not very good at blowing bubbles with bubble gum, but I do like the taste.
Well, what about the phrase living in a bubble? Have you ever heard that before?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's like when you're living with other people who kind of just think the same way that you do, and you don't really get a lot of exposure to different kinds of thinking. You're living in a bubble.
Oh, that is kind of like what we're talking about today in an article called Filter Bubbles.
That's right. So right there in the deck in our lesson, it says how digital media intensifies our prejudices. And right away, we get the idea that filter bubbles have to do with prejudices.
But what is a prejudice? I'm glad you asked. Jack will be sharing a little bit about that in today's language lab. We have many things to learn, so what are we waiting for? Today's a great day to learn something new.
Let's do that together right now.
Filter bubbles. How digital media intensifies our prejudices. Dystopian themes in stories like The Matrix, Inception, and Ready Player One portray the struggle between facing the real world and embracing a comforting illusion. Some characters don't know that they're trapped in an artificial dream, while others knowingly choose fantasy over reality. In our digital age, this danger doesn't just exist in fiction. Whether we realize it or not, we're all becoming trapped in filter bubbles, invisible, mental cages built from our prejudices and desire for comfort. We create this trap by doing things like exposing ourselves to politically biased news and entertainment, or surrounding ourselves with like-minded friends.
Hello everyone, welcome to Language Lab. I'm Jack. 先来看 prejudice 这个名词，意思是偏见、歧视。例如 ，One way that women experience prejudice in the workplace is unequal pay. 薪资不公平是女性在职场上受到的歧视之一。或者 There is a lot of religious prejudice in India between Hindus and Muslims. 在印度教徒和回教徒之间有许多的宗教成见。Prejudice 也可以当作动词，意思是使人产生偏见。例如 ，During the last presidential election in the U.S., social media really prejudiced people's opinions of the candidates. 上一次美国总统大选时，社群媒体确实让人民对候选人产生偏见。再来看 biased 这个形容词，意思是有偏见的。这是动词 bias， 使某个人产生偏见，后面加上 ed 变成形容词。后面如果加上片语 in favor of， 有利于某人或某事，就是偏袒、支持的意思。例如 The New York Times is heavily biased in favor of Scott Rumpel as mayor. 纽约时报极度偏袒 Scott Rumpel 成为市长。 或是加上介系词 toward， 有偏向、倾向的意思。This company is biased toward women, so they hire very few men. 这个公司偏袒女性，所以仅雇用少数男性。Biased 也可以放在名词前面，例如 Her biased report of the suspected murderer sent an innocent man to jail. 他对谋杀嫌犯带有成见的报告，让无辜的人进入监牢里。All right, let's get back to our teachers.
Thank you very much, Jack. All right, let's get right into it. Filter bubbles. First of all, that word filter in Chinese, you might say 过滤, right? There are different kinds of filters. And so the idea with a filter bubble is that we are filtering certain information out of our lives and filtering certain information into our lives.
That's right, and we begin reading here. How digital media intensifies our prejudices. Dystopian themes in stories like The Matrix, Inception, and Ready Player One portray the struggle between facing the real world and embracing a comforting illusion. Now, this word dystopian might not be a word that you see every day, friends, so let's talk about that for a minute.
That's right, dystopia, and we also want to mention the opposite, which is utopia. I believe the word utopia was coined first, and then of course we have the opposite here, dystopia. Now, utopia, that is like the ideal or the perfect world that some people imagine. And we don't live in a utopia because our world is not perfect. There are many things that need improving, of course. A dystopia is the opposite, and it has the added idea of a lot of injustice, and there are many oppressed people in a dystopian world.
That's right, and our article here lists a few of the movies that are famous for having dystopian themes: The Matrix, Inception, Ready Player One. I also really like to read dystopian fiction, too. I can think of several books that have that dystopian thing to it.
Like what, Anne-Marie?
Like, for example, The Giver.
Okay, The Giver.
The government was trying to set up a utopia, but actually the people were very oppressed, right? So that's an example of a dystopia.
Okay, that's a dystopia. I thought of the Hunger Games. That's also an example of a dystopian kind of world, right? So the idea, friends, is that it's fictional, okay? You're imagining, or people are imagining, a world where things are either really good in a utopia or things are kind of terrible in a dystopia. And these movies or these books or stories, of course, are not real. The Matrix, Inception, and Ready Player One portray the struggle between facing the real world and embracing a comforting illusion. Have you ever embraced an illusion? Now, a magician is good at illusions. An illusion looks real, but isn't. It's kind of like magic. So when we say that someone is embracing an illusion, that means they are believing the lie or wanting the lie to be true.
That's right, and we could also embrace other things too. For example, an idea. Some people embrace an idea too if they really like the thought process behind that idea. They just embrace it. They really want it to happen. Let's keep reading here. Some characters don't know that they're trapped in an artificial dream, while others knowingly choose fantasy over reality.
Okay, so people don't know they're trapped in an artificial dream. That's referring to the movie Inception, okay? Now we read on, in our digital age, this danger doesn't just exist in fiction. Whether we realize it or not, we're all becoming trapped in filter bubbles, and we see a definition here. There could be different definitions, but here we read, invisible mental cages built from our prejudices and desire for comfort.
And we read on, how do we do this? We create this trap by doing things like exposing ourselves to politically biased news and entertainment, or surrounding ourselves with like-minded friends.
Now, what is a like-minded person, Anne-Marie? It's someone that just thinks the same way as you do,
Yeah, that
right?
would be the easiest way to say it. Someone who has the same ideas, or maybe the same religion as you, or maybe the same political views.
Is this a problem?
It can be.
It can be, right? And that's what we're going to discuss a little bit later. But right now it's time for us to learn about something new in the Info Cloud.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us here on InfoCloud.
Rex, I think I saw your doppelganger today.
You saw my doppelganger. What are you talking about?
Well, I was on my way to work and I saw you, except it wasn't you, but I thought it was you. So I waved my hand and I said, "Hi, Rex."
What did the person say?
Well, your doppelganger waved back at me and said, "Hi," but I'm not Rex.
I'm glad he had a good attitude. Now let's look at the word you mentioned, because it's a big word. Doppelganger.
Yes, good idea. A doppelganger is a German term meaning double walker. Now we've taken this word into English to mean someone who looks like you so much that that person could be your twin.
Now I want to meet my doppelganger. So what is the difference between a doppelganger and a clone?
Well, that's a good question. A clone is a person or animal created from the cells of another through science. A doppelganger is someone who looks so much like you that they could pass for you without being an identical twin.
虽然这个世界上没有两个人是长得一模一样的，但却有长得非常像的人。你可以用 doppelganger 来形容面貌相似的人。Doppelganger 原本是德文，形容一个人长得很像你，几乎是你的双胞胎。I saw your doppelganger on the street today. 我在街上看到一个外貌跟你极度相似的人。另外一个相关的英文用语是 clone， 这个字代表复制人或是复制出来的动物。跟 doppelganger 不同的是 ，clone 是从另外一个人或动物的细胞复制出来的。Doppelganger 是跟你长得很像，却跟你没有血缘关系的人。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 我们下次云端见。
Studio Classroom is on the air.
Welcome back to Studio Classroom. Today the topic is filter bubbles.
Just to review, what word was used to describe people who are in filter bubbles?
Are you thinking of the word trap?
Yes. If you are in a filter bubble, you may think it's just you trying to remain in a comfortable place.
But it could be a trap and you didn't even know it. Let's continue learning about how we create this trap in the next reading.
Filter bubbles. Digital algorithms enhance our problem by learning what we like and filling our social media with opinion-affirming content. The result is a personalized daily environment that filters out contrary points of view. We become fooled into believing that our opinions about complex issues are unquestionable. Meanwhile, the filter bubbles of those who disagree with us deceive them in the same way. This distorted view of reality weakens our thinking, strains our relationships, and polarizes our societies. How can two people have a respectful, open-minded discussion when they both believe that only a stupid or dishonest person would disagree with them?
OK， 再来看 distort 这个动词，意思是扭曲、误传。譬如 Bob distorted the facts to make it seem as if he had come up with the new line of products. Bob 扭曲事实，说的好像这个新系列的产品是他想出来的。Distort 也有曲解事实、造成误导的意思。例如 In the past, society trusted journalists to report facts, but now society believes they distort the truth to reflect their beliefs. 过去社会都信任记者会据实报道，但现在大家相信记者都曲解事实来反映自己的信念。 Distort 还有扭曲、变形的意思。例如 Many globes distort the world map to make countries seem larger or smaller than they actually are. 很多地球仪把世界地图变形，让一些国家比实际尺寸看起来变大或变小。最后来看 polarize 这个及物动词，意思是使两极化或对立。Political views often polarize countries during an election. 选举期间，政治观点经常使国家产生对立。另外 polarize 也做不及物动词，譬如 When the teacher let his students decide whether to take a final test or write a final paper, the class became polarized. 当这位老师让学生决定期末要考试还是交报告时，全班出现两极化。Polarize 是光学上所谓的偏振，就是透过特殊处理，只允许垂直偏振的单向光波通过，过滤掉其他方向的光波。这种设计的镜片叫做 Polarized sunglasses， 也就是偏光太阳眼镜。我们来看例句。I wear polarized sunglasses to protect my eyes from the sun's harmful rays, especially at the beach. 我戴偏光太阳眼镜来保护眼睛，尤其是在沙滩上的时候，这样才能把阳光里对眼睛有害的光线过滤掉。All right, let's get back to our teachers.
Thanks, Jack. In this section, of course, we're continuing to learn about this trap. We're not the only ones that create this trap for ourselves. Computers have something to do with it. We read digital algorithms enhance our problem by learning what we like and filling our social media with opinion-affirming content. Now, an algorithm is kind of like a set of rules that computers follow. And so they give us what we like in our social media, that stuff that just affirms what we already like anyway.
And what happens when this is the case? We read on, the result is a personalized daily environment that filters out contrary points of view. If something is personalized, what does that mean?
Okay, this means it's designed or produced to meet your personal standards or your own personal requirements.
You know what I think of when I heard when I hear the word personalized? Personalized stickers or personalized stationery.
Okay.
Have you seen those little stickers before?
Yeah, that's right. You have your own name on it.
Yeah, you have your name on them, and then you put them on things that are yours, and they can be personalized, right? You can choose what pictures you want on them, or you can choose your name or how you want your name to be written.
Right. Is there another way you can use this word personalize? Have you ever personalized something like a sticker, friends? But we continue here. We become fooled into believing that our opinions about complex issues are unquestionable. At the end of our lesson, we see the word open-minded. And I just want to say, I think most people want to think that they are open-minded. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say so. I think most people like to think that they are very accepting of everybody and they are very tolerant of other people. But right now, we have to go to our SC challenge.
All right, friends, a lot of those words from the word bank and more information words were pretty high level. So let's see how you do and how well you know them. We have two contestants playing with us today. Let's find out who they are.
Hey everyone, I'm Pauline. So happy to be back for another SC challenge.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh, and I'm glad to be here to see if Pauline is up to the challenge of trying to beat me at the SC challenge.
Well, it's always great to have you two here for the SC challenge. These are going to be fill-in-the-blank sentences. So you have the words there in your hands. Let's just see if you can guess the correct words for these sentences. Friends, let's see how you do as well. Here we go. Number one, the fact that my YouTube account always feeds me the same kinds of videos is due to its what? Yes, Pauline.
Algorithm?
Did you say Algor? Algorithm? Algorithm? Is that one of the words? Don't you just love that word? Algorithm? Yeah.
It is a good word.
Josh, would you have guessed the same thing or something?
I actually would have guessed the same thing.
Yeah, well, that is, of course, correct. Friends, did you guess algorithms? They're funny things, aren't they? Well, here is number 2, because Pauline has 1 point. Here's number 2. Pauline thought that Josh would make the best president, but because he's her husband, many people think that she's just... Yes, Josh?
Oh, biased.
Biased? Would you have guessed the same word, Pauline?
Yeah, that's a great one. I am biased for Josh.
Yeah, I think he would make a great president too, but maybe I'm biased as well because he's a great coworker, you know. Okay, well, that means that it's game point is 1-1. Friends, how are you doing? Here is number 3. Many blame the media for blank the news and thereby blank our society. There's 2 words you can fill in there. Yes, Pauline?
For distorting the news and polarizing society?
All right, those are 2 very great words. Does that work here? Josh, what do you think?
Oh, I would have said distorting the news and prejudicing society.
You know, that's a great option as well. Actually, the ones that I have written down here are distorting and polarizing. So great job, Pauline. It's true. Whether you agree with it or not, many blame the media for distorting the news and thereby polarizing society. Well, that means Pauline is today's winner. Nice job. That never happens.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does all the time, right? All right, well, friends, thank you for joining us for today's SC Challenge.
We hope you did well with that word review, friends. Well, it is important to interact not only with people who think the same way we do, but also people who think differently. So here's a question. What do you consider is a successful conversation with someone who disagrees with you about something? What do you think, guys?
Yeah, Jack, does anybody ever disagree with you about anything?
Yeah, my parents.
Oh. So in that interaction, what do you consider to be like, oh, this was a successful conversation?
It never
succeeds.
Never was a successful
so just
conversation.
Avoid the conflict altogether.
Yeah, well, because it's mostly me listening to my parents talking. It's never my parents listening to me talking. So
it kind of feels one-sided sometimes.
Yeah, 所以对我来说，一个好的 conversation 应该是彼此双方的声音都可以被听见。
Yeah,
Both
for sure.
people have their opinions heard.
Yeah, and you know, that Jack kind of emphasized a relationship a little bit there too, and that for me, that's a key thing, is sometimes I'll have a conversation with someone that I know I'm going to disagree with about something, but I think a successful conversation is one where I'm like, okay, well, at least we can have our relationship is still going to continue. Maybe we didn't even agree by the end of this conversation, but we can still have another conversation in the future because the relationship wasn't broken or harmed in any way.
That makes sense. For me, let me think. A successful conversation with someone who disagrees with me would probably be if I convince them that my opinion is the right one.
Of course.
That's a successful conversation.
Well, Anne-Marie, I'm not going to disagree with you about that. Yes, of course. It's so important to be right. We all feel that way, friends. Well, we do have more to learn about filter bubbles and how they affect our opinions and relationships. So be sure to join us next time right here on
Studio Classroom.
A good friend lasts a lifetime. I am so proud to have you in my life. A good friend lasts a lifetime.